Hey, would you like to learn how to find your purpose, install new empowering beliefs, deepen your focus, and build the right mindset and strategies for health and monetary success? Then make sure to check out this interview with Dr. Mike Van Thielen, who's a world record swimmer, a PhD in holistic nutrition, and an entrepreneur. We discuss many topics that are the foundation of real change. Do you want to learn how to get thicker, fuller, and stronger hair? Then make sure to check out Fully Vital. The team's put together 4 different products that work together to stimulate hair follicles and grow thicker, fuller, and stronger hair. And by the way, these products are 100% natural and vegan. So make sure to check out fullyvital.com and get 15% off your first purchase with the code anti-aging-hacks. Are you enjoying the videos on this channel? If you are, then please make sure to hit the subscribe button down below so you can get notified when we release new episodes. Our goal on this channel is to help you look and feel younger and live your most adventurous life. So please make sure to click the link below and subscribe so you get notified when we release new episodes. Now let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome back to the Anti-Aging Hacks podcast. Today my guest is Dr. Mike Van Thielen, who is a PhD in holistic nutrition. He's a doctor of Oriental Medicine and is certified in Chinese herbal medicine and homeopathy. He's a prolific author. He's written multiple books, a best-selling author of Access to Success book, which is focused on optimizing productivity and focus and creating a stress-free life. And he's written many books since then, which we'll talk about in this episode. He's also a treating physician for Boston Neuropain and Psych Centers, helping tens of thousands of patients with chronic pain and mental health conditions. He's the founder of the Health Freedom Movement and sought-after speaker who has shared the stage with celebrities such as Les Brown, Brian Tracy, and Darren Hardy, who's the owner of Success Magazine. Dr. Mike has over 3 decades involvement with best optimal health practices, anti-aging and regenerative medicine, sports performance, nutrition and supplementation, and biohacking strategies. He's a mentor and coach helping people regain control of their health. With all that said, Dr. Mike, welcome to the Anti-Aging Hacks podcast.
Thank you for having me, Faraz. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So there's a lot to talk about, but you were born in Belgium and you were quite the expert swimmer, meaning you got multiple records in swimming. So tell us about your background and how you got into being a competitive athlete and a winner.
Well, it's actually a funny story. I was school system is a little bit different there, but let's say I was in elementary school, 8-9 years old, and of course we do school sports competitions too. So I was on a basketball team, the soccer team. I was actually the fastest runner, but I lost swimming because a good friend of mine was part of the local swim team. So I couldn't win the swimming. So I guess I was a very sore loser. And my solution was I joined the swim team also. And that's where I found my passion for swimming. So today I still joke that it's actually my worst sport. But I got some age group Belgian records, some national titles, some national records over there with my team, relay records, etc. And then after that, I took a 22-some-year break and started swimming again when I was age 46. I'm 51 now. And 2019, just before COVID, I swam a world record in the 45-plus age group. And obviously, there was a lot of biohacking involved in order to accomplish that. So I guess that's where that competitiveness comes from, is sore loser.
That's amazing, man. You got a lot of titles and records in swimming, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I can relate because I was a soccer player in high school and I played for my college team and I wanted to go professional, but my father wasn't having it. He was like, no, you got to go to engineering school or got to go to medical school. Well, that's the only 2 choices I had.
At least in soccer, you could have made a living, not in swimming, but in soccer, at least you could make a living, right?
That's true. That's true. Swimming, there's not much money in swimming, huh?
No, unless you're a Michael Phelps or a Ryan Lochte or somebody that gets the sponsorship and you live in America, but certainly not in Belgium or Europe. You're not going to make any living with that, no.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So how did you come to America and how did you get into what you're doing now?
Well, I was traveling with the Belgian Olympic swim team, or swimmers, in preparation for the Atlanta Games in '96. And at the time, they were short of physical therapists here. And so a recruiter called me up and asked if I was interested in working in the United States. I said, sure. He said, where do you want to work? I said, Fort Lauderdale, because that's where we went to training camps, and I was in my 20s, so I knew all the bars, right? So 2 weeks later, he called up and he said, I have nothing in Fort Lauderdale, but I have something in Ormond Beach. So I go, excuse me? He says, Ormond Beach. I say, I don't know where that is, but the beach sounds fun. And that's how I ended up in the Daytona Beach area in Florida here in 1997.
Wow, that's not a bad area to be in. So good job.
Yeah, weather-wise, it's pretty good. Yes, can't complain.
Can't complain. And you look very young for being 50. Did you say 51?
51, yeah, yeah.
Wow,
I'll
you
be
look pretty
52
young.
this year.
We got to talk about what you're doing.
That's right.
But okay, so tell us, let's get started. You've written multiple books on health and wellness and entrepreneurship and success. What's your perspective on health and wellness? You come from a European background, so you see what Americans are doing wrong. What are we doing that we shouldn't be doing, and how can we, or I guess let's just talk about the big mistakes that we're making here in America with health and wellness.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe not just America. When I first came here, yes, it was obvious. It was easy to observe that there was a much higher percentage of obese people here, especially when you walk around in Orlando or go to the parks and stuff like that. We didn't see that in Europe, but now we see that more and more in Europe too. I think we're just a little bit behind in Europe or in other parts of the world when it comes to really adopting the fast food change and make food cheaper than it is to cooking at home. So everybody still got the fancy kitchens and the double ovens, but it's never used because it's cheaper to go out and get the fast food, right? And so I think, overall it's the same problem, but it's getting away from nutrient-rich food that our body and our cells need to, calorie-rich food that is empty of nutrients, That's obviously the biggest problem. The way I usually explain that to people is to focus in or hone in on health on a cellular level and keep it simple. So, we have about 75 trillion cells in our body, which is an incomprehensible number. It's more than the stars in the entire galaxy. But each and every one of those cells performs a few million chemical reactions per second. So if you want to know how many chemical reactions there occur in your body at any given second, we simply have to multiply 75 trillion with a few million. So next time somebody asks you if you're busy, you say, yes, extremely, right? But to that extent, what's happening, each and every one of those cells also has 100,000 receptors on the outer membrane. And so the mRNA, or the messenger, tells the cells constantly what it is that the cell needs to repair, replenish, and renew itself. So, for example, the mRNA or the messenger yells, hey, I need vitamin C. So then the receptors stick out their neck in the extracellular environment to look for vitamin C. But what if, due to our standard American diet, SAD, that vitamin C is not available? Then the body and our cell is forced to settle for less potent, less compatible nutrients. And that's when we get degeneration and mutation, which is disease and cancer. Right? So by understanding that simple principle, we can conclude a few things. Number one, we don't have to be health freaks to be in optimal health. As long as we give our body all the essential nutrients that it needs on a daily basis, we can replace, replenish, and repair ourselves without getting any disease, right? But the problem, because that was your question, in America and the rest of the world, is that most of us do not provide our body with those essential nutrients. We only eat bad foods, and then the cells are forced to use those less potent, incompatible nutrients, and that's when we get diseased, and that's when we get mutations and cancer. So the key here is to really make sure that your body gets all the good stuff on a daily basis, and then it's okay to eat the taco on Tuesday or that pizza and the beer on Saturday. But otherwise, it's not okay.
Fair. Thank you. That's a great answer. You also help people with pain, or chronic pain, I should say. How do you do that, and what are some results you're seeing in your practice and around you?
Well, yeah, when it talks about chronic pain, there's a few categories, but the two major ways to look at chronic pain is really find out, is there systemic inflammation? Because inflammation causes pain, right? So that's more a systemic cause and a systemic solution. And then number two is many times pain comes from a structural, a physical asymmetry or imbalance. Someone that's been doing the same job for decades on end, and so there's a balance or a disbalance in their muscles or in their posture or overuse injuries. So when the pain is pure structure or physical, obviously we need to do corrective exercises or posture, and we need to go to a knowledgeable physical therapist or chiropractor to help there and get the correct exercises to get that back into balance. But most of the time it's systemic inflammation. And, now even conventional medicine agrees that over 90% of all disease, not just pain, is directly related to the systemic inflammation. And so systemic inflammation basically is a state of emergency within the body, and that state of emergency causes free radical damage, and it's systemic inflammation. It's a vicious cycle of more and more pain and more problems and health conditions. So when we look at that chronic pain issue, if it's systemic inflammation, we simply, theoretically, it's very simple. We simply need to reduce that or keep that systemic inflammation in check. And obviously, we can do that objectively. We simply can do a blood test and measure our CRP, C-reactive protein, and then implement certain measures such as upgrading your diet, avoiding certain inflammatory foods, and increasing the intake of anti-inflammatory foods and supplements as a first measure of getting that systemic inflammation out of your body. And then after 3 or 6 months, we can do the blood test again and see how effective those measures were. But to answer your question, it's either corrective exercise or posture, or most of the time, really upgrading our diet and our lifestyle by keeping toxemia, free radical damage, and systemic inflammation in check.
Great. Yeah. Like you said, it can be quite simple to start. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars. And inflammation or inflammaging also has been called as one of the major reasons we age faster than we should be aging.
Sure.
And it just builds up over time. And it's very hard to detect because you don't really feel it for the first few years. But like you said, the pains and aches then become obvious. And then you have to do more drastic
and
measures.
Anything else, not just pains and aches. You start gaining weight, you start getting some brain fog, and so everything follows, and you start to get some diagnoses because the body on a daily basis is putting out fire, so it has to put all the essential parts to the side. It doesn't even have time to burn your fat, so you're gaining weight, and it's a vicious cycle because if you store fat, then the fat cells, which are a lot more than storage places for fat, they release cytokines, which are pro-inflammatory also. So it's a vicious cycle where most people have difficulty getting out of. And again, many times it's not chasing all those symptoms and diseases or pains, but it's like stepping back and addressing this major cause of all disease, which is systemic inflammation. And just by a few tweaks of your diet, some supplements, some lifestyle modifications, often that can be done in a matter of a few weeks to a few months.
Agreed. Okay. I used to ask on this podcast of all the guests to give me their 3 top anti-aging tips or strategies that they're using. The audience is well aware that we are in the new era of longevity and anti-aging, and that we have some cool biohacks or small molecules or medicines or regenerative technologies that are really going to move the needle when it comes to living a long and healthy life. So tell us about your top 3 anti-aging tips or strategies that you use.
Top 3, that's a tough one, right?
Yeah.
Well, number 1 has to be obviously mindset, right? It's your belief system, your mindset. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit in more depth, but whatever you believe is what's going to happen. It basically, your belief system and your mind is in control of your destiny. So if you think you're going to die when you're 70, just like your parents and your grandparents did, you probably will, right? So your belief system, controlling your mind, is becoming more and more important. And even I've always been focused on the physical, especially with the swimming and the athletes and the body and strength training. And so it was always focused on body until I really witnessed many incredible healings, etc., with the mind only. And so obviously I got very interested in that, but a decade ago it was very difficult to, people say, oh, you got to meditate and you'll get into a certain state and gradually you will get control over your mind. Well, here I go meditating, nothing happens. It's very hard to empty my mind and not think about anything. And so after a few times not feeling any progress, people give up, including myself. But today we have so many technologies and compounds and nootropics and brain tap and new calm and all kinds of binaural beats and music and ways to tap into certain brainwaves, that now we have the technology or the strategies that will facilitate the average person like myself to get into those zones much quicker. Even breath work. 2 weeks ago, I did some breath work with Travis Steffens, and for the first time, just concentrating on the breath, it cleared my mind of anything else, and I got into a higher, state of mind or brainwave. And so there's many tools out there today where the average person really can get into control of their emotion, feelings, and get into being in control of their mind. So today, I think, number one, we really need to look into some biohacking technologies or strategies to help us getting in control of our mind, in control of our emotion and feelings, and alter our belief systems. Mm-hmm. So that would be number one, control of the mind. Number two, hard to say. It kind of depends what your goals are or what you're after or what health condition you're in right now. But maybe neurotransmitters. We got our parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. I would think that most people are always in flight or fight, is going through this daily routine of working and trying to organize the 14,000 messages that are bombarded us on a daily basis, and we can't get ahead of that. And so we're always in that, adrenaline, dopamine overload. And so we need to really shift to the parasympathetic. So we need to stimulate our oxytocin. Today is Valentine's Day. So yeah, oxytocin, the happy hormone. We need to get into the, what was the other one? It's an endocannabinoid that we produce. It's called the bliss molecule. So we really need to put in strategies to feel happy, feel blissed, and those types of things, and take over emotions and feelings like worry and fear, negativity, jealousy, and those types of things. So I think that would be my number two biohack. And then the physical biohack would be, you really need to, upgrade your diet. But diet itself today is not enough. We need high quality supplements. Even if you eat exclusively organic, wholesome foods, our body lives in a very toxic environment. We live in cities and towns. We have the electromagnetic frequencies and radiations. We have all this technology that gives us a lot of that electromagnetic radiation. We have polluted air, polluted water. Our foods, our drinks are loaded with toxins. So we have a toxic overload. And so we need to do more than just try to eat healthy. We need to get those high quality supplements. And today, a lot of those, what we call biohacking compounds, are on the market. That we can utilize keto esters, peptides, urolithin A, moringa, the list goes on, biocitroids, phosphatidal. And so based on what you need or what you want to upgrade, whether it's body, mind, or life, there's so many supplements out there that have very specific and proven benefits to biologically basically to objectively reverse our biological age. So yes, it's a complicated area, but you need to find a coach or a mentor to assess where you are and what the next steps are, and continue to objectively measure your progress in your quest to reverse your biological age.
Yeah, totally. I agree. There are certain things you can do that are free that everybody should be doing, like reducing your toxin load and eating nutritious whole foods, and reducing drinking polluted water or being in a polluted environment, and grounding a little bit more. So you can do many, and getting sunlight and sleep. You can do a lot of these things, but then you got to start layering on some of those anti-aging strategies, and those could get complicated as the deeper you go, right, or the further you go. So definitely work with somebody, and obviously keep track of your metrics, keep track of your biomarkers to make sure you're actually making a positive difference in a good direction. Yes. Okay, so I want to talk to you about purpose. And the reason I want to talk about purpose is because there's been ample evidence now that purpose is really, really important for living a long and meaningful life, especially with longevity in the blue zones, as discovered by Dan Buettner. The people that live the longest have a purpose in life. They're waking up in the morning to do something. And I don't want to bring up the story too many times, but I was in Okinawa one time, and I went to go meet older people, centenarians really. And I interviewed a 97-year-old woman and a 92-year-old man. And I asked them specifically, like, why do you wake up in the morning? Like, what's your purpose? And the woman said flat out that I want to become 100 years old because the whole town is going to celebrate me. It's going to be a whole day just for me. And so that's my goal. And so that's why she wakes up every morning. And I was just talking to a friend of mine recently, and whose dad's retired, and he said my dad's not happy. He's just sad, upset, just cranky all the time. And then they were doing a business deal, and he got his dad involved for 3 months to negotiate and like help. And he said, I've never seen my dad happier in the last 10 years. So just him having purpose to do something to help out in a way just made him so much happier and less cranky. So what advice do you have for people that maybe haven't found a purpose yet, or they just have a job, or they're doing something in life and they're not completely satisfied and they think there's something better for them? How might they go about discovering or finding their purpose?
Yeah, most people don't even stop and stand still about it, right? Because society has pushed us a certain way. We're born, we got to go to school, then we got to go to college, and then we got to go work for somebody till we're 65, and then we're told we can buy an RV and travel around the United States if we don't have our first stroke yet. And so it usually doesn't happen. And then we have our parents that push us a certain direction. If dad's a lawyer, he probably wants you to go to law school. His mom's a doctor. She probably wants you to go to med school. But nobody ever asks, what do you want to do, right? And so we usually end up with credentials that really don't fit our purpose in life, or we end up in a job that, yes, pays the bills, but we really don't have that life fulfillment. So, one of my first steps in helping people is really, make them stop and do certain exercises with them and ask them certain questions to dig a little bit deeper to find that fire and passion again. So many times I just ask them, do you remember the superpower that you wanted when you were a kid? The dreams about who you wanted to be? Because at that point, when you were a kid, you believed without any doubt in your mind that you could be that person until somebody, most likely your parents, told you that's impossible. And so then most of us settle for ordinary. So I want to revisit, when they were a kid and see if there's still certain passions or fires. And many times they have changed, but sometimes they still want to be the pilot, even though it's been 30, 40 years. And so if that still, gets that fire in their stomach, then we need to, start talking about that. Or many times I do some exercises with them in which their answers reveal really what their passion and fire is. And so many times when we find that, they say, yes, you're right, but I have this job and I have this wife and this family and these kids. I cannot transition into that. And I said, yes, you can. We don't have to stop your job today, but we can slowly transition into that by freeing up 1 hour a day. Oh, I don't have 1 hour a day. Yes, you will. And so then we find many things that he or she is doing that really is a waste of time, that doesn't contribute to anything. And so we free up 1 hour a day, and then we start working on their goal and their dream, and then slowly transition into that. Because, and here's the key, once we have some fire and passion, then obstacles, become opportunities, and obstacles become incremental steps closer to your dreams and your goals. Because the second step that we do is, once we have a purpose in life, we need to start taking control. So yes, we need to transition, but we need to start taking control of our life, which means is we need to control our agenda, our calendar. We need to almost script our life to a way where we're in control of our life, because most of us, life controls us. And so once we get more and more control in our life, we create clarity, and clarity reduces all stress. If we know what tomorrow brings, next week brings, next month brings, there's no need for stress or worry or fear or feeling overwhelmed. So purpose and control of life. Then the next step is we really need to make a plan and a strategy to reach those goals and dreams. So we need to kind of write down the what's, what do we want and when do we want it? Not necessarily the how-tos or the details. They'll fall in place as we take that road. But that's where those obstacles become, opportunities. And you write down when you interview those two people, they wake up with a purpose. So now that you have your purpose and you have a plan, those people wake up and they can't wait to get things done versus people that wake up and, oh my God, another day at work and I don't want to do this and it's Monday morning. And so that's that shift in mindset, purpose versus no purpose. And so they want to get to work because they want to get just another step closer to their goals and their dreams. And if there's an obstacle, they're going to attack it versus throwing up their hands in the air. The reason they attack it is because they know where the finish line is. Just like the 110 meters hurdles or the 100 meters for women, they know how many hurdles there are, but they also know where the finish line is, and therefore you attack those hurdles. So that's part number 2 is the plan, the strategy. And many times it also means we got to find out the type of people that you need to surround yourself with. Yes, like-minded people, but you also need people that are strong where you are weak, because I believe we don't need to work on our weaknesses. We need to continue to improve upon our strengths, but attract the people that we need that are strong where we are weak. And that's all part of the plan and strategy. And then the last step number 3, is really the biohacking component. Now, how do we upgrade our body? But mostly our mind, and that's where the belief system visualization comes into play in our life in order to really achieve those dreams and goals. And I'll put it all together in a trade-marketed method that I developed last year. It's called the IZOD method, IZOD, meaning in the zone, on demand, because most of us have experience being in the zone, but it was merely by accident or chance. It's like, oh my God, I won this competition, or I did this presentation and it was flawless, or I crushed my sales goals. I don't even know how. Mm-hmm. So what I'm doing, I'm teaching people through those 3 steps on how to really increase that focus, productivity, purpose of life. So you're in the zone, on demand, bringing your A game whenever you want to.
Yeah, that's great. It's called the IZOD method, IZOD.
IZOD, yeah,
okay,
the
great.
IZOD method. It's also the name of the book.
Okay, and the book's on Amazon, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, fantastic. So you can get the book and learn more about what Dr. Mike is saying. And of course, I have some more questions we'll discuss. And I think one of the questions that I get when I observe people and see them in action, what happens is when there is, I guess, when we have free time anymore, we fill up that free time with either going on YouTube or going on Instagram and watching other people's highlight reels, and it just makes us even more depressed. We're not happy about seeing everybody else living their best life, which they're not. But we think they are, and so we're like, oh my God, my life isn't all that good. But it's the filling of time that deprives us from the ability to sit and think quietly and think about what we could do in life. Also, what I've learned, at least in my experience, is that if you're in the stadium and you're watching a game and you're watching teams play and you think, yeah, that's my purpose, or if you're going to do it that way, like sit there, eat some popcorn and try to figure out your purpose, to me, that's been harder as opposed to getting on the field, like you said, 1 hour a day, working on something. And you may decide that that's actually something you're super excited about, or it actually isn't, and you might find something else. But until you get moving, until you get in the field, you're not going to find that out. So you've got to commit to something, an hour a day or something where you're taking action. So thank you for sharing that. And then
what most successful entrepreneurs in the world do is they make an appointment with themselves, and it's 1 hour a day. And that's why they're successful. And usually we easily are finding ways to free up valuable time with everybody in everybody's life. Like you said, social media, Netflix, silly stuff that we do that doesn't help us in any way, shape, or form. But even if we couldn't, just simply ask what time you're getting up. 7 o'clock. Let's get up at 6. Is that simple? There's your hour.
The extra hour. You can do so much more, especially in the morning hour when everything's quiet and nobody's emailing you, and you're not looking at your email every 15 seconds to see if somebody's emailed you that you have to respond to. And I've been there. I worked a corporate job before this, and we were constantly watching our emails to make sure the client didn't need anything. Didn't need to do that every 5 minutes. Okay, so purpose, of course, very important, and I want to talk about focus in a little bit, but also relationships and how important they are for not only helping you get past to where you want to go, but also improving the quality in your health. So I'll say this: a lot of people may have friendships or even family members that are very negative, and they tell you stay low, don't try to go too high, or if you try to climb, they want to pull you down, right? This is common. And so one of the choices you have is to move away to a different place, to a different city, so you're away from the environment. Or two, you just got to have the stronger frame. Let's say you can't get away from your mother and she's negative, right? If you have a stronger frame, then you can get her to come to your side. Meaning, like, I've talked to my mother over the years, and now she knows to not talk anything negative with me. Like, it's always a positive. She doesn't say anything negative, at least when she's talking to me. I'm sure she does when she's talking to others. So what perspectives do you have, Dr. Mike, on how people can change their thinking, change their relationships, change who's around them so they can progress and prosper in life?
Well, yeah, there's a few aspects there, and you brought up something really good. Is once if you realize you need to grow or you want to grow, you obviously need to get out of your comfort zone. And most people are in their comfort zone. And if those people are in that zone, in that bubble with you, obviously they don't want you to leave because they're comfortable with you in that comfort zone, just like your mother, right? But and the comfort zone is change. It's fear to get. Everybody has fear to get out of that comfort zone. So that's why most people just stay stagnant and not unleash their possibilities or unleash their superpowers. But that's why they need to be educated about the comfort zone, because if you know what's coming, then it's less uncomfortable. So once you step out of the comfort zone, that's what we call a fear zone, right? Fear of the unknown. But if you know that's there, it's great. The next zone is the learning zone, where you acquire new skills. And then the last zone is the growth zone. So many times during your life, you need to get out of the comfort zone into the fear zone, learning zone, growth zone. And then once you're in the growth zone for a while, that becomes your comfort zone, and you got to repeat that cycle, right? But if you're aware of that, it's already much easier just having that knowledge to do that. You also got to be aware that you go to a next growth zone, there are people that you're leaving behind, whether it's family or friends or business partners. If they're comfortable where they are, that's great. They're going to talk you into not doing it. They're going to pull you back. They're not going to agree with you. And that's out of selfish reasons. That's not because they don't want you to see succeed, but they don't want to change the environment they're in. So they don't want you to go, right? Mm-hmm. And as long as you're aware of that and you're prepared for that, it's okay. That doesn't mean you got to cut them out of your life. But like you said, move away from them, have less contact with them, or surround yourself with a lot more people in that new growth zone. And just keep the other people, yes, they can stay your family and your friends, but on a different level, right? And as long as you know that's going to happen and people are going to say no and be negative because you want to step it up, they either step it up with you or you realize that why they're doing it. And so I think that's an important part. The other part is you got to work on again, back onto the mind and your belief system, right? Because a belief is nothing but a thought that you keep on thinking, right? And therefore you can change it at any time. That's number one. And so you got to strengthen your belief system in a way that when you have your goals and your dreams, you really got to believe so strongly that you can succeed that there's no doubt in your mind. Because if there's doubt in your mind, the universe basically has two options, success and failure. If there's no doubt in your mind, the universe only has one option, and that's a big win, right? So you really got to continue to work on that belief system. And that's where that control of your life comes in too. If you have a clear plan and a strategy, if you have the right people to work with and to get to your highest potential, if you know what every day brings, if you have your purpose, then there's going to be less and less doubt and more control. And then you're going to believe more and more that you are going to succeed. And then the likelihood, because of your belief that you're going to succeed, it's much higher, right? So you got to work on that belief system. How do you do that? Visualization, mind healing strategies. Now we got a lot of technologies. We got a lot of nootropics that will help you strengthen that belief system. Because many of us are, driven by our past experiences because we have failed in the past, and we got to see those failures as those things as stepping stones, as thank God they happened because that's why I'm here. And so we got to stop thinking about that past, and we need to let ourselves be pulled forward by our future and by those goals and those dreams. And so those are things. Those are all visualizations. things that we can do while we meditate, visualize, manifest, and those types of things. And to me,
Great.
those things personally were very difficult a decade ago, but now we have a lot of technologies, tips and strategies, and mentors and coaches that really facilitate those things.
Mm-hmm. I want to touch on belief. So thank you for getting to the right segue or the right section where I want to talk about this for a minute. And to me personally, I think beliefs are so important, right? And I'm sure you agree with that because you're talking about it. And a lot of us, when we're younger, we have things that happen to us, small traumas, big traumas that cause us to play small, think small, not believe that we can be the best version of ourselves. And so it's hard to change your beliefs because for the most part, you're thinking thoughts that you're not aware of because your conscious mind is not even in control most of the day, right? You're just thinking all kinds of thoughts, and whatever you've had as your identity or your belief system since you were a child just keeps repeating on autopilot. And so, like, is it a matter of, I want to get to this how of doing this, right? How do you how do you identify old limiting patterns and old limiting beliefs, and how do you override new ones? And so is it a matter of just repeating the new ones until this neurocircuitry becomes more powerful than the old one? Or are there other ways that you use to get this new belief system to become the normal, the default, and as opposed to the old ones that are there in their brain?
Yes, in my new book, I talk about eliminating false core beliefs, and so there's many tips and strategies. So the first thing is being aware by just reading a few pages, like, oh my God, I'm doing that. Being aware of the fact that your mind is tricking yourself in believing certain things, and so by writing down your emotions and your beliefs, and then comparing him to, okay, is this a true belief, or is it a false core belief, or is it, how did my mind trick myself? And then categorizing it, you start to be very cognizant of the fact that, that you were basically trapped by your own mind. So once you realize that it's a false core belief, you can start working on, you're not going to pay as much attention to it because it was false all these years. And then it's easier to focus on new belief systems. But you have to, again, consciously make time to think those and to practice those. And that's where, of course, mindfulness, visualization, meditation, and those types of things come into play. You need to make time for those, to do those on a daily basis and practice those to override the false beliefs and create the new ones. Because this is all about neural connections, right? Mm-hmm. So the more times you think something positive, the better, right? And that way you're going to filter out all those unconscious negative thoughts and feelings. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how that works.
Yeah. What I've learned in the past few years is that the human brain is primed to watch for danger. And we think negative and worst case scenarios in every condition. So like you said, unless you're doing something to prime your brain in a positive way every single day with visualization, feeling, meditation, taking the time out, even writing it down and actively thinking about it, your brain's going to go back to those old neural circuits until at some point you can probably become level 100 Super Mario Bros, where you're just like super positive and that's your normal state to be. But that's, I think, very, very small percentage of the population. So you must, if you take anything from this conversation with Dr. Mike saying, you have to take time every single day. This is probably a tip that's underrated and people should be listening to, because if you can control your mind, and it's going to come over with repetition, and once those new neural circuits are in, then you have a better chance of believing that you can be successful, that you are enough, that you can be loved, and therefore you can have a better chance of success. And so with all the strategies that you work on, Dr. Mike, how important do you think the belief system is? Can you have a good strategy and good tactics and wrong beliefs and still succeed? Or how would you rate the importance of beliefs in your overall success plan?
It's probably the number one. It's probably the number one belief system. If you believe you're going to fail a test, there's a very high probability you're going to fail the test. You believe you're only going to live to be 70 years old because the average family member dies at 70, then that's exactly what's going to happen. Because your mind is your blueprint, and so you're writing your own book. And so if you're not even a main character in your book, that's a problem. If you're writing a bad ending, nobody wants to read your book, right? Every story's got to have a good ending. So you got to start. It doesn't matter what your first 5-6 chapters were. If there's 12 chapters, it doesn't even matter if it was negative. You are here today. So rewrite your own ending and start being the Superman in your own book. Start to be the main character. Starting beating all the bad people and the bad situations, and write yourself a good ending. And that's done with the mind. The mind is your blueprint, and that's where your belief systems fit into. So again, it's never too late, because we talked about purpose. I had another podcast last week, and it was like 70 plus or something. And those people have lived life, but they could go another 20 to 30 years. So don't wait. Sit there, do nothing because you think you're supposed to die in a few years. No, pick up another purpose. You got more free time now because you're not working. So where is that fire? Where is that passion? And let's contribute to this world, because today the world really needs all of our superpowers.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. One of the other things that I've learned in my journey is that when you have a belief system that maybe you're not even completely aware of, but it's there in your mind, and you encounter a person who's had success in doing something, and they just drop a statement which shatters your belief. You go, wait, is that even you've done it? So therefore it must be possible. Therefore, my belief is not true. And if you're conscious enough, then you can say, okay, I'm believing the wrong things. I got to change my belief. And it could be for anything. If you want to be a better parent and you think that because you have 3 kids, it's hard to parent, or you can't have a job and be a single dad or single mom, anything is possible. Once you find 1 or 2 people that have done it, it just shatters your belief systems, and the stronger belief system wins in that case. And so that's been very interesting for me too. Now, question for you. When people are working on beliefs and changing their mindsets, how long does this process typically take? Is it like a 10-year process? Is it like 6 months? If they do what you tell them to do, take time every day, maybe.
Of course, it's very individual, but I think that if you get the right coach or mentor or the right technologies, because they're really there to. When I meditated in the beginning and I didn't get any results, I really didn't feel any differently. It's like, you're giving up. You're not going to spend that time. But if you practice something a few times and you felt different, or you traveled somewhere in your mind where you never before, then it becomes exciting, and there is more. And so now you're eager to practice it more, right? So it's a little bit of that instant gratification, even though you're far from where you want to be, but you need to see something happening. And I think today that's possible. So I think it's directly correlated on how fast you reach that goal, or that control of your mind, on how much you put in. So how much time on a daily or weekly basis do you put in mindfulness to get where you want to be? And that's directly correlated. And I think, certain people can get there as quick as in just a few weeks or a few months, where they totally can turn their belief system around, their blueprint around, the end of their own story around, just because they were able to go into those brainwaves, or tap into those brainwaves, and just eliminate all the distraction in their head and kind of take control over their mind.
Yeah, I'm just so fascinated by this topic, and I've been doing a lot of my own practices in the last year or so. Okay, so what I want to get into is also the ability for us humans to focus ourselves, right? It's like we said, we're so distracted now. I think we're even worse than, a jellyfish or a yellowfish? Which
the average is 6 seconds attention span. 6 seconds.
6 seconds. It's ridiculous. And so how did humans, well, we know how we came to this. It's cell phones and instant marketing messages that are thrown at us, and emails pinging our inboxes every few seconds. So when people are this way, and also, like I said earlier, people now fill up their free time. If they have 1 minute between something, they open their phone up and they're scrolling through the
Yes.
messages. So how can people start to build focus, and why is focus even important for living a more purposeful and a
Yes.
happier life?
Well, again, you said people filling their time if they have a few minutes with social media and useless stuff. But if you have a purpose, you won't do that, because if you have purpose and you want to accomplish something, you're not going to waste your time on bench Netflixing and watching a movie, or just sitting in the couch, or going to. You won't, because you have a fire and a passion, right? So that's number one. Number two, yes, because of social media, we all are now in what we call a dopamine overload. Dopamine, as you know, is the reward hormone. If your brain squirts a little dopamine, it feels good. So that's why people, eat bad food or sugary foods. It gives a dopamine release, or energy drinks or coffee. But now it's social media gives us a dopamine overload, and that's why we are addicted to it. Because if somebody likes our post or hearts our Instagram or gives a comment, it feels good because we feel important. And so we seek more of it. But a dopamine overload, what it means, it basically takes all of our 5 intelligence hormones out of balance, because we have dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine. And if those 5 intelligence hormones are balanced and optimal, that's when we're into the zone. That's where we are maximize focus, maximize production. That's when we win. That's when we get things done. But when we're in a dopamine overload, that won't happen. And so dopamine overload causes brain fog, fatigue, loss of focus, can't concentrate, no attention span, 6 seconds, easily distracted, unable to finish homework, a project, etc. And it's a vicious cycle, because then, if we can't get things done and we're basically unable to, finish a task or something, then again, that we're seeking the happy hormone or the dopamine more. So it's a vicious cycle. So first of all, we need to recognize that social media, bad food, and those things are causing the imbalance of those hormones. So first thing, and I have pages and pages full of tips and strategies in the book. First thing we need to do is we need to start retaking control of our work environment, eliminate distractions, understand that the phone is not dopamine. And so when we want to accomplish some things, we need to put certain things in place, putting the phone on airplane mode, incorporating certain techniques, like, for example, the Pomodoro technique, where we 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off. We need to designate a certain area in our office or in our home that we work, not in bed, not in front of TV. We need to tell people to not disturb us, etc., etc., etc. So there's many no-cost tips and strategies that we can implement to really create the right environment and not being distracted by social media on our laptop, phone, etc. So that's number one. Number two, there are certain nootropics, natural compounds out there that will especially initially help us getting into that zone or focus better. I know a lot of people are on smart drugs, like Adderall is the number one drug, and I've never taken it. I don't need to, but I never recommend it to anybody either, because if you look at the possible adverse reactions, increased heart rate, increased risk of heart disease, psychosis, seizures, I mean, that's not something you want to be taking. So, that's when I, or people like me, look for natural alternatives. And there's some nootropics on the market that are safe, that don't give us any jittery effects, that may be helpful for certain people once they control their environment and they want to be productive, can take to really help them to do what? To balance their intelligence hormones and optimize them so they can be focused. And so there's some nootropics out there. A recent one that I, give or recommend to people with ADHD, anxiety, or just lack of focus, students, athletes, entrepreneurs, is called Focus Plus. And Focus Plus is something that is, again, 100% safe and natural. It has 4 key ingredients. The number one ingredient is called biocitroid, which basically is a terpene extracted from a specific type of blood orange from the southeast rainforest in Asia. But biocitroid at 30 milligrams or higher has been shown to cross the blood-brain barrier. What it means, it has a fast effect. Within 30 minutes to maximum an hour of taking it, it has effect, while most other supplements would take a few weeks to build up into your system to hopefully have some type of an effect. And then what the company did, Clarigen Z Health, they added 3 other neural agents to the biocitroid to have a more well-rounded effect. So they added L-tyrosine, which you may know, it's an amino acid, which is a precursor to dopamine and norepinephrine, which helps with mental processing, memory, and cognitive function. Then they added phenylalanine, which is a neural agent, which helps with attention, motivation, also helps with thyroid hormone production, so it helps with mood. And then the last one, or the third one that's added to biocitroid, to me is the more important one. It's phosphatidylate. Phosphatidylate is a healthy fat that we find in our body, but also in our brain. But phosphatidylate basically stimulates NGF, which is our nerve growth factor. So it stimulates the formation of new brain cells. So it's not just about focus and production, but it actually helps us with neurotransmission and signaling and new brain cell formation. So that's really a biohacker when it comes to being smarter and tapping into more of our brain capacity, forming those neural connections. So those 4 compounds together are totally safe. There's no jitter effects, there's no adverse reactions, and seem to help for many people. So other people, they don't really find the benefit. So I'll also tell people, try it. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't work, that's okay too. But for your listeners that want to try it, just go to trysmartpill.com and they'll send you a sample and you can see if it works for you or not.
Okay, try smart
Pill, Bill.
Bill, trysmartbill.com. Okay, cool.
Trysmartpill.com.
Yeah, I'm actually in favor of using nootropics. I've used many in the past. I've not tried Focus Plus yet, but I've used many in the past, and sometimes I do still. And yeah, it really helps get you in the zone. Now, with Focus, as you said, love that you have so many techniques in your book. So make sure to get the book. What's the book called with the Focus?
It's called The IZOT Method, and the subtitle is Optimize Focus, Productivity, Free Up Valuable Time, and Live Stress-Free.
Yeah, fantastic. And in my experience with Focus, you have to start, it's a muscle. You have to start to build it. In the beginning, you're going to feel out of place if you sit down for 10 minutes without your phone. You're going to feel completely out of the environment. And so over time, you're going to build up that muscle where you can sit and be. You can make your whole lunch for about an hour and not have to look at your phone. Imagine that. Yeah. Or you can just sit and just focus or think about your life and where you want to go without needing to touch your phone, which
no, again, it's like the importance you place on yourself and what you want to produce. Even when it comes to the phone and you say, okay, I got to work an hour, I got to get this project done, right? You put the phone off. That doesn't mean you can't use the phone. If you need to use the phone to ask a question or do something, you do. But you don't want other people to interrupt you, to be part of their agenda, right? Yeah. So you're going to respect yourself by turning off the phone. You're going to use it for you, but you're going to let other people interrupt you while you're trying to be productive. So that's the mindset there.
Totally. Love that mindset. I find that once I start working in the morning, if my phone is in reach, if I can reach it with my hands, even if it's on airplane mode, I reach every hour, I check something. I don't know why I'm checking, but if I put it away in a different room where I have to physically get up and go, then it's much harder. If I take it out to the garage and put it in my car, then that's the gold for me. Like then I don't go anywhere. Then I'm without my phone all day.
Whatever works, right? Yeah. Whatever works for you.
Okay, awesome. Dr. Mike, we're past time. Thank you so much for your time. This was really good. We talked about a lot of cool things, and I would love to shake your hand and meet you at some point. So tell us.
Yeah, that would be great. We'll do that.
We'll set that up. So tell the listeners where they can find you, your social media, your websites. Give us all the information.
The easiest is go to my website, because from there you can get anywhere. The website is biohackingunlimited.com. From there you can have my app. You can go straight to your smartphone and download from the App Store Biohacking Unlimited. It's first month's free, and you will get daily information on upgrading your body, your mind, and your life. So I have an app. I have mentorship programs on my website where I help people regain control of their health or help them with business or their personal life. So there's mentorship programs you can check out. Currently, I have actually a 20-minute free Zoom call. So you can go on my website and just put a spot on my calendar. during the Zoom call, we'll just see where you are, what you need help with, and see if there's any way that I can help you with. So that's available to you. My books are there. My keynote speaking page is there. My podcast page is there. So biohackingunlimited.com is where you can get all my information.
Fantastic. Make sure to check out biohackingunlimited.com. Dr. Mike, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.